Thank you so much, Jake, for taking the time and joining me on the show today. It's a real pleasure to have you on. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. For one reason, because you are like the guy on BitClout, which is something that's been super intriguing to me, and I want to learn more about and talk with you about today. And second, and maybe even most importantly, you're the first Jake to be on Pod of Jake besides myself as the host. So it's awesome to have a guest, and we're just two Jakes having a good conversation, hopefully, and looking forward to having some fun with it. I think the first place to get started is for those who don't know you, if you could sort of walk through your story and really from as early as you're willing to start to where you are today, and then we'll get digging in on some of those aspects from your story as well as BitClout and all that.
Let's do it. Yeah. I reject pretty much every podcast that comes in, but when I saw Pod of Jake, I couldn't reject my fellow Jake.
It's amazing.
Yeah, man. So how early do you want me to start?
Well, I guess one interesting place to start could be I read that when you were in like your early teens, you started selling sports memorabilia, autographed sports memorabilia on eBay and ended up sort of making a business of it. I don't know if that was your first entrepreneurial thing, but I love hearing sort of early entrepreneurial stories. So whether it's that or something else in your childhood that you could sort of talk about and set the stage for this, entrepreneurial gene that I think you have that carries over today, identifying something like BitClout really early and getting heavily involved.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, I started my first business when I was 13. I just had this moment where, when I was really young, I wanted to figure out ways. I didn't really need anything for the holidays. And so if my parents wanted to buy gifts for me, we'd go and we'd, donate to families. And then when I was like 12, 13, I started getting really into sports. And so I wanted some sports memorabilia for my walls. And so I went to a hobby store, bought some stuff. And then come January, I wanted to get some more stuff. And I told my parents, hey, I want to go and go back to the hobby store. And my parents said, no, you got to wait till your birthday. And my birthday was February 21st. But, when you're 13, you have no patience. So I just started to explore the internet. I found, Walter Payton autographed 8x10 photo on eBay. I purchased it without my parents' permission. I emptied out my piggy bank. I brought it down to my parents, said, here you go. You got to write a check. They said, what are you talking about? This is crazy. Long before the days of PayPal or anything like that existed. And I bought another item. And when I bought the second item, it came and I just didn't really like it. And so I just sold it on eBay and it sold for more than I paid for it. And so that was the beginning. And then, to your point, I started chasing athletes and celebrities outside their hotels, getting their autographs and selling them on eBay from the time I was 13 till I was, 18 years old, pretty much. And it became a pretty robust operation. You would kind of like tape cameras to our head to make sure that we were capturing the moment long before GoPros existed. Maybe I should have invented the GoPro, but I didn't. And I couldn't go to every event, so we used to hire people around the country to kind of like go to different events and get the autographs because I was still in school, and I would kind of like sleep through class. And then when class was over would be the start of my workday. And I don't know what drove me back then, it was kind of just the passion to create value, I guess, for other people and give them something that they might want to hang on their wall. And I just have always sort of had that in me. I didn't really need the money for anything. I just loved the pursuit of the chase.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just like young people hustling for the sake of hustling, I think. And awesome to hear, you're 13 years old at the time, sort of have these people around the country going to these events and getting the autographs for you. It's one thing to like buy the sports card or the autograph and then resell it in another way or whatever. But it's another thing to actually go out and get the autographs. So really cool to hear. And especially like at such a young age, doing that. And then, like you said, like sleeping through classes and going to work at night. Super cool. So growing up beyond that, I don't know if there's any highlights that you want to touch on in between this, but I know you then later on went and tried to basically you thought you were going to make a career as as a musician, basically as a performer. And then there was a transitionary point where like you realized that, you actually wanted to you wanted to manage the talent and basically found something that you believed in. Can you walk through sort of that chapter of your life a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I guess, when I got to college, I had been doing so many deals where you call Muhammad Ali or Magic Johnson's agent on the phone and get them to sign a bunch of autographs for you. And the recession hit. And all of a sudden, all this inventory that I had invested in was worth so much less. People needed milk for the refrigerators. They didn't need jerseys for the walls. And so I thought, whatever I'm going to go do next, if I could be financially well off being a little paparazzi, like chasing around these celebrities, I wanted whatever I was going to do next to have a really big impact on the world. And I was looking at the people that were, living next door to us in Northbrook, Illinois, where I grew up, and they were well off. But if they wanted to go and have some mission that they really believed in, whether it was, ocean conservation or anything really, they were going to have trouble, I thought, getting people to follow them because they didn't have a following, and social media was just starting to become what it is today. And it just seemed like there was an opportunity where people in the limelight were in a position to use their voice for causes they believe in a way that was so much more significant than the rest of the population. And so I thought, okay, what's the number one way I can make an impact on the world? And somewhere in my twisted 19-year-old brain, I decided that I should become a rapper. And so I was watching Kanye, T.I., Lil Wayne, and Jay-Z perform Swagger Like Us at the Grammys. And I thought, I can do that. And so I just set out to become a rapper. And within a year, I had DJ Khaled and DJ Drama hosting my mixtape. And there's more to that. I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to go much deeper than that. But I was the worst artist, period. And so you kind of had this moment in time where people were like, how is this guy getting any sort of notoriety on social media? Because he's so terrible. This makes no sense. And so it led to other artists reaching out to me and me starting to do the marketing for them, because every rapper has a side hustle. And I always knew I wasn't going to be the best writer or producer. I wasn't good looking enough to be a model. I wasn't going to open up a clothing store. I just had to figure out what it was going to be about me that would push me over the top. And digital marketing was just the perfect place for me to start. And so that was kind of how I got my foot in the door a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess these people realize, like, all right, if this rapper can go and build a following, he can certainly build it for me. If I'm, maybe a more talented artist, it sounds like. But I mean, I sort of, you call yourself bad, but it sounds like you had DJ Khaled working with you on the mixtape. How did you pull these things off? Or are you sort of being humble and you actually weren't so bad?
Well, it's funny. People in rap music, I guess in all music, I think that they'll do anything for money. And so I was kind of using the revenue I generated from my sports business to put it into my career and then some, right? I was basically spending every dollar possible to try to pursue my career, because my mentors had told me you had to spend all this money to achieve greatness in music. And that wasn't true, especially in this new world of social media that was sort of coming up. And it sort of led me to make all the mistakes that I could possibly make. And then when I finally started managing artists, by the way, I never wanted to be a music manager. I should mention that. I mean, I had no interest in it. It sounded like the worst job in the world, right? People calling you about their problems, their deals, et cetera, instead of you pursuing your own career. But I had met these kids from Chicago. They went by Corella. They went to my high school, and we kind of just reconnected, after some time. And they were just always growing musically in this way that was just so unique. And speaking of money, I mean, they had negative $24 in their bank account. And I remember they were washing their hair with laundry detergent, because I'm pretty sure at that point, I don't know if it was like laziness or they couldn't afford shampoo. It was just a unique period of their life. But, we started working together, and I always look at like the way these different tech startups get off the ground. And it's very similar, I guess, to what we did back then, which is you just have to sort of fake it till you make it and find a way to get that, to sort of get that first moment where you can get your foot in the door. And so what we did was, they wanted to be part of dance music, and dance music was this giant man's island. I mean, the only thing worse than telling my parents that I was going to be a rapper was that I was now going to manage female DJs for a living. And it wasn't that my parents or anybody else around me was sexist, although, maybe people were. It was more so, which they definitely, the industry was, but it was more so that people were scared for me, because they were like, there are no female DJs that are generating enough revenue that would make this so that you could actually make a legitimate living doing this. And so it was very difficult to figure out how we were going to get them noticed. And they had put out some songs that had, they got 100,000 plays or whatever on SoundCloud before I got involved. And their original manager was really great in building the brand and like figuring out who they were going to be in the marketplace. But we had to find some way to actually get them noticed. And so there was this Skrillex song that had leaked online, maybe I guess it was leaked online. This was back in 2011, and it leaked from his set, and I listened to it, and it sounded nothing like Skrillex. And so I asked the band if they would basically remake it and make it sound like Skrillex. And so they did. And, I told them, look, I said, how long can you get this back to me? And the producer said, look, it's going to take me 3.5 weeks. And I said, Chris, you got 48 hours. If you get this back to me in 48 hours, I'm going to change your fucking life. And I didn't even know, Jake, what I was going to do with it. I mean, this was like totally off the cuff. Sometimes the greatest moments of inspiration, they come at the most random of times. But we knew that these kids could do, to hip hop, do kind of what to dance music, what the Black Eyed Peas did to hip hop. And so we just believed so much that it was possible. They were the first artists I believed in more than I believed in myself. I was prepared to do anything for them to make it. And so we took this song, they finished it by Sunday night, and we took it. And the guy that I was managing them with, he said, look, I'm going to go to all these blogs at this time. I wrote this press release. I got the social post approved back when social media was third person and not first person as it is today. And I said, Nathan, we can't do any of that. And he said, why not? I said, I need people to think this came from Skrillex. Dance music there's no room for women in dance music right now. We need to make it where one of these guys co-signs us, but we don't have any way to get a hold of Skrillex. We don't know anybody at Atlantic Records. We don't know any of these people. So we got to find a way. And so I took this old chain letter from fraternity I was in college, and I just changed the first email in the chain to say it came from an MIT student. And I changed the time code to say it was sent Sunday morning. And I said, hacked into Atlantic Records and got the leak. And the second email I changed, I copy paste this in a Microsoft Word document, right? I didn't, our backs were against the wall. We had nothing to lose. I just wanted to make it in the music industry. And the second email said, can I send this to people? Third email, sure, go for it. Fourth email, I'm playing this in the pregame tonight. Fifth email, who's Corella? Sixth email, how do you know this is the Skrillex single? And it just kind of kept building with these sort of manufactured emails, if you will, with the time code just changing a little later, but always with these .edu university email addresses that were part of the original chain. And the second to last email said, how come this isn't on any of my favorite blogs yet? And I forwarded that to my business partner. And he said to me, how did you convince the guy from MIT that this was a hack? This is crazy. And at that point, I knew it was going to work, but I needed a university email address. And so my friend had just graduated from Hofstra, because I graduated a year prior, so mine was already defunct. And he gave me his Hofstra University email address. And I copy pasted the email chain. I sent out one real email that said, I'll send this to a couple of my favorite blogs right now. We attached the song, and instead of calling it a remix, we call it Skrillex featuring Corella, Breathe, vocal edit, like it was the official version, copyright Atlantic Records, property of Ausla, do not send. Like I said, we had nothing to lose. I mean, we were just a couple 22-year-olds just trying to make it in the music industry. And I BCC'd every major music media outlet in the country. It's like news at MTV.com, info at RollingStone.com, et cetera. And it was sent on a Sunday night when nobody was in the office. And by Monday morning, so many different publications had not only picked it up, but you couldn't really shut it down. Today you just shut down a stream with one click. It's no problem. But back then you couldn't do that because it was all P2P on these torrents. And so there's 25,000 households that are, torrenting this thing. And then we started to get emails from Atlantic Records. But long story short, which this is a very long story, but that was kind of how we got our first break. And people started to pay attention.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you ever get what happened with Skrillex and the fallout of all this? And also how do you go from, that's again, it just shows an incredible amount of hustle and everything, but how do you go from sort of faking it to now where Corella is you've made it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So to answer the first one, because you're so right, you have to actually have it. You can't just fake it. And there's other things we've tried where you fake it and it doesn't work because the person doesn't have it. And the same thing applies to tech companies, right? If you have great marketing and you don't have the right product, then there's not going to be that product market fit because you didn't have the right product in the first place, no matter how good the marketing was. But Skrillex's team, we got 3 emails from Atlantic the next day, Atlantic Records. The first one said, can you take this down immediately? And the brilliance was we didn't have it up anywhere. We didn't post it on social media. People were just uploading the song that was in the email file. So we kind of ignored that one. And the second one said, can you tell us more about this? And we're like, this is growing pretty quickly. Maybe we should ignore that one too. And the third one was the funniest one. It was fun to tell this story to the chairman of Atlantic Records years later. But the third one that came in asked us for the splits. They said, can you tell us the splits? Which in music is who wrote which part of the song. And the only time you ask for the splits is if you believe it's an official release. And so I didn't know, the relationship between Skrillex and his record label. I thought maybe they had just missed they thought they had missed the release. I had heard from Skrillex's team that they thought the reason that it did well was because it was actually maybe what the song was supposed to be, but who knows about that. But the funniest story was his videographer was on his bus and included it into a video of Skrillex performing live. And Skrillex came and listened, saw the video and said, "Oh, what is that?" And he said, "It's your song." And he said, "It's not my song." He says, "Yeah, it's your song." He says, "No, it's not my song." And the reason he thought that was because it was, number 1 and number 2 on Hype Machine, which used to measure like popular songs on the blogs.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Skrillex wanted to ask him to take it out because I guess Ellie Goulding came. They were dating at the time, and Ellie came to check it out and was like, "Hey, that's the beat of yours that I wrote over." So it wound up being a Skrillex and Ellie Goulding song. But I actually got to tell Skrillex the story over dinner as well, and his tongue came out pretty far. But you do have to really have the goods. And with Corella, they were bringing something completely different to dance music. I mean, they were bringing the rock to the rave in a way that no one had ever done before. And they just brought a lot of energy to the space. They weren't the traditional white males from Europe with the black and white T-shirts with over manicured photographs and making the same type of songs. I mean, they were truly interested in doing something authentic to them that was completely differentiated and relevant at the time. And that's really what's, the key, I think, to success in anything is, can you be different? Can you be relevant? And can you get that exposure? And they had all three.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I like the parallel that you make to like tech companies, because no matter what you're building, it's just a matter of like distribution, product market fit, and whether it's a DJ or, an app, it's sort of a lot of overlap, I think. And, no one's seeing this more up close and personal than you, going from doing it on the music side to now basically doing it with BitClout. Before we get to BitClout, like specifically, or maybe BitClout is the answer, but I would love to hear, like, how did you get into crypto more generally in the first place?
I think I've just been always fascinated by tech in general. Like I remember as Spotify sort of overtook the music industry, there was this moment where I felt like I was beginning to champion them, and other people in the music industry didn't see what was happening. They thought, "Oh, Spotify's not paying us anything." And you started to look at the math, and it was like, no, actually Spotify is paying a lot as long as there is critical mass and adoption on this. And it seemed like there was going to be, given the numbers that were going on in Europe. And so I even remember around that time, there was a guy that was entrepreneur in residence over there who's become a bit of a magnet in the tech world as well, named D.A. Wallach, who had wrote a piece called Bitcoin for Rockstars. And that was sort of, back in 2013, the first time I read about it. And I was kind of late to the game. I've been more of a consumer product on the tech front guy. Like, for the past 2 years, I've been working with the team building community.com. And that's sort of been more of a focus to me. And through community.com, really, I was even reading your blog post about the social dilemma, really thinking about what does it mean for creators to actually own their audience and be able to reach them directly. And most apps today just don't allow for that. They enable the ability to instantly publish, but they don't guarantee any instant distribution. And so our idea was, what would it look like if we actually did it over text, almost like building a social network over text and making direct deals with carriers like Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T to make sure that whether it's J-Lo or Gary Vaynerchuk or Diddy, that these people could, text out 1 million people and it would reach them all through one 10-digit phone number instantly. And the point of that was just that every 5 or 10 years, there was going to be another TikTok, there was going to be another Instagram, there was going to be another YouTube, but the phone number was like the one true atomic unit of identity. And through that process, I started to really understand the struggles of creators, because creators were sort of going through, you'd meet with them and they'd say, "Oh, it's crazy. My social media, I went up by 5 million followers last month, but my engagement went down, not even in terms of percentage, like in terms of the number of people. There's so many more people here, but I'm getting so much less engagement. Like, what do I do? And how does that impact my business?" And the challenge with social media is the addiction to the gamification is so strong. I truly believe that a lot of the people who are creators in the world, they're paying attention sometimes more to the numbers on these platforms that have sort of created this arena where we all play this game than they do to building their actual business. And so for the last 2 years, I've really been thinking about, what does it look like to be in a position where you can not only control your distribution channel, but what would it look like to enable monetization in new ways, and kind of studying, everything that comes up from the Patreons and the Substacks and everything. But I think that Web 2 doesn't really hold a finger to what is going to be possible in Web 3. And so the first time I heard about BitClout, and it was like, hang on, all this attention, all this currency, if somebody looks up Elon Musk on Google, they're running ads against that. He doesn't get paid for any of that. Well, why not? And what would it look like if you could actually monetize yourself? And social tokens seem to be quite a crazy way to do so. And I hadn't really studied the social token space at all. But when I read the first BitClout white paper, it just seemed like this is sort of where crypto needs to go. You've heard about blockchain for the last 10 years, blockchain, 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 blockchain. But what consumer product on the blockchain have most people ever used? There isn't really one, in my opinion. And so this is where BitClout starts to be really interesting, because it's attracting a new audience who wasn't that big into crypto. So to really succinctly answer your first question, I only started investing in crypto in the beginning of last year, sort of as the pandemic hit and it took a big hit. And I said, okay, I need to really be a part of this. But even then, it was taking something that actually played in my world, in my ecosystem, that's now dragged me into the entire world of crypto very quickly. And I'm so fascinated and eager to learn as much as I can and provide value where I can with what I do.
Yeah, it's actually a really cool sort of getting into crypto story, because most people were introduced through, basically Bitcoin, sometimes like Ethereum and some different dApps and things like that. But for you, it was really this history of and yeah, maybe you'd come across Bitcoin here and there in your past.
Bitcoin and Ethereum, of course, but DeFi is like whole new world to me.
Yeah, and it's more so now, this is drawing on themes that you've basically lived through and seen with the artists that you represent and things like this. And so it's actually sort of like a different avenue that you got onboarded through. And I think, frankly, that's an avenue where if you ask this question to a lot of the main names in crypto in 5 years or so, a lot of their origin stories, I think, whereas now it's like Bitcoin, in 5 years, it's going to be NFTs, or it's going to be BitClout, and it's going to be a lot more of these consumer friendly things that are just reaching much larger audience than deep tech people or really, libertarians or whatever. There's all these different generations of crypto people. And I think right now you can really feel it going mainstream. And I think in large part, that's probably due to BitClout and NFTs and similar platforms like that are just reaching broader audiences. Does that resonate with you a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you think about most, cryptocurrency in general, and even blockchain as a whole, it's fundamentally built for financial transactions and smart contracts. But in the real world and in Web 2, there is so much collaboration and engagement that happens beyond the transaction. Sure, I go with the bank because it has the best rates, but if the bank doesn't respond to my emails and doesn't treat me well, I'm not going to stay with that bank. And so I think that this world of collaboration post-transaction on the blockchain, or using blockchain data to create off-chain value, is so nascent right now. And there's so much opportunity. And I do think that it might be those softer sides of it that do attract people, as you're saying, into the larger crypto ecosystem.
So let's for the people who aren't so familiar with BitClout, let's try to take it from fundamentals. I think few have as good of an understanding as you do. Even myself, I've spent some time on the platform and I wrote a blog about it, but still sort of wrapping my head around some of the aspects. And of course, a lot of these aspects will take years to play out, and it's hard to prescribe how the different features may be developed and how creators will, of course, take this tool and make use of it, for themselves and for their communities and alike, and help themselves to monetize and all of that. But I guess if you were to introduce someone who doesn't know BitClout at all to BitClout, how do you sort of go about doing that?
Yeah, of course. Great question. So it begins with the fact that you, as the creator on BitClout, have an opportunity to monetize yourself. And the way you do that is through what's, I believe, the killer app of BitClout, is the creator coin. And so the way that it works is, if you think about traditional social media, you don't get paid to post, you don't get paid to participate either. So in Web 2, period, you don't get paid to create, you don't get paid to participate. But in Web3, you are going to get paid to create and paid to participate. And so I think that the way I like to think about it is right now, if you rewind 10 years ago, or however, 15 years ago now, I guess closer to 15, I was a junior or sophomore in high school when Facebook came out. Like, imagine if Facebook came out and it was on 2 university campuses, and Zuckerberg said at that point, hey, Jake and Jake, anybody in your network, anybody in the world, go ahead, use our name and likeness, do whatever you want, build whatever apps you want, shopping, dating, gaming apps, whatever your heart desires. And it's up to you to provide utility, garner market adoption, and charge a fair price. And if you do it, you get to reap all the rewards. And if you fail, well, that's your failure as well. But go have fun. I'll see you later. You don't owe me anything, by the way. And that's sort of the underlying thesis of the BitClout blockchain, because BitClout right now, it's really a proof of concept. The website, the website, I should say itself, BitClout.com, is a proof of concept. It's kind of like Twitter with money attached. Mm-hmm. And people are speculating on people's reputation by buying their creator coin and selling their creator coin. And part of it is based on, celebrities who have joined or who have yet to join. And other parts of it is like new creators who are in the ecosystem who are just kind of, making their name and providing value to the community. And people are purchasing their coin because they believe they're going to continue to provide value to the community. And over time, hopefully these purchases of the creator coins actually have value beyond the pure speculation. Like maybe you'll get access to Pot of Jake podcast earlier than anybody else if you hold a certain number of coins. Or maybe you'll be invited to some event, or maybe you'll get some package in the mail, or whatever, like whatever the gift is or the reward for being a social token holder and sort of staking those coins. So at its core, it's the ability to monetize all of these things that happen in the Instagram or in the Facebook or in the Twitter ecosystems that are currently only being monetized by the company. They're only being monetized for the sake of the shareholders. And so instead of going to work for Facebook or work for Instagram, which we all do pretty much every day with our social interactions, with BitClout, the vision is that you're actually going to work for yourself. And BitClout isn't BitClout.com any more than Ethereum is Ethereum.com or Bitcoin is Bitcoin.com. BitClout itself is an actual underlying blockchain. And the vision for this underlying blockchain is to decentralize social media altogether. And what I mean by that is, in Diamond Hands, who's the founder, in his vision paper he put out, which you can find the original one at bitcloutwhitepaper.com. And then you can also just go to look up, I'm sure, Diamond Hands Vision. You'll find the full vision for BitClout. But it's pretty remarkable the way he talks about the fact that social media innovation has arguably been stifled by being controlled centrally. Because if you're a new social media upstart, you need data and you need to build great algorithms. And to have data to build great algorithms, you need users. And you can't really get users without having the great algorithms in the first place. So it's kind of this chicken and the egg scenario. And what Diamond Hands' vision is the way that Bitcoin decentralized money. What if BitClout decentralizes social media by making all of that data public? And by making all of that data public, any entrepreneur hypothetically can go use that data to create their own potential startup that lives on top of the BitClout blockchain, uses social media, brings all that data back to the blockchain, and empowers the community as a whole. And it was interesting too, when I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, one of the things that came up was this idea of the Fat Thesis protocol. And the Fat Thesis protocol, or I guess it's Fat Protocol Thesis, I don't know. Basically what that says is that in the Web 2 world, most of the rewards have been given and reaped to the application layer, the Googles, the Facebooks, et cetera. But in crypto, up until this point, most of the rewards have actually been going to the protocols themselves. Ethereum, Bitcoin, investing in those has been more successful than investing in the application layers that exist on top of them to this point. And BitClout wants to be and aspires to be one of the blockchains that reverses that trend by creating immense opportunity for people who want to and choose to build on top of it, because it is beyond the transaction. It is attention. And when you have people's attention and you can monetize it in any number of ways on the blockchain, it gets really interesting to think about all the potential and possibility for what our world could look like if this stuff was not managed centrally, but was actually available for the public.
Right. So let me try to break that down a little bit, and then we
Sorry, that was a lot.
No, no worries. It's perfect. But I just want to sort of run it back a little bit in plain English for people who are just hearing this for the first time, and then maybe we can dig down some different avenues from there. But I think one thing to sort of note is that you mentioned how like BitClout.com is not BitClout. And I think that's an important differentiation to make that certainly wasn't obvious to me when I first came across it, which is basically like BitClout.com. You mentioned this. It looks like Twitter with money attached. And when we say with money attached, basically you talked about these creator coins. Every profile, like imagine if when you created a Twitter profile, there was just this feature where people can sort of buy coins attached to it, and the price is basically set on an algorithm where the more people want to buy the the share or the coin of your Twitter profile, or in this case the creator coin on your BitClout profile, basically the more people buy, the more the price goes up, the more people sell, the more the price goes down. And it's just all algorithmic in that sense. And so you can imagine, there's a certain natural max on things, because if you get to a certain point for like Elon Musk's profile, it's not feasible for people to pay like $1 billion a coin or something like this. And I think that's how the underlying protocol works as well with BitClout. So there's creator coins basically, which you pay for in BitClout, which you get in exchange for Bitcoin. So people who have Bitcoin basically go to bitclout.com for now, and then they exchange their Bitcoins for BitClout. And then if they like, they can use that BitClout to purchase individual creators. And that's sort of the summary of what exists today from my perspective. And of course, there's all these different features that you sort of hinted at are super exciting, because they represent this possibility of disrupting and decentralizing social media in the same way that Bitcoin has done in the financial world to the central bank, basically, with the central bank in this case being like Facebook or Twitter, et cetera, who have reaped the rewards from basically, like you said, everyone, when you go on Facebook and you create a bunch of content, to some degree, you're working for Facebook. Same goes for Twitter. They're basically selling your attention and your value creation to advertisers in a way. So I'm excited about the long term of BitClout, but the short term, even just the simple BitClout.com is also really interesting. So I guess, what have you seen early days just with BitClout.com that has taken what you said was like a proof of concept and shown like, okay, this this is killing it. Like this really works.
Yeah, it's just you and me on this call right now, but there's all these people that are going to be listening to this out there. And I'd say to them, how many times in your life have you met somebody where you left a meeting, they were presenting you some business proposal, some idea, some concept, and you said, wow, that concept or business may work or may not, but this person's a rock star. I just want to invest in them. And up until BitClout, there's really been no way to do that. And so this idea that everybody in the world is going to have a token of themselves is seemingly starting to take shape. Hopefully BitClout works, but regardless, it seems like there's going to be this wave that occurs where the same way you have an Instagram profile, you're going to have your own token, which is just kind of a wild concept. And so what I've been seeing early on the platform has been this really interesting early adopter community who is creative and passionate and excited about the possibilities of actually being a part of something that rips the fabric open on what social media has been all this time. It's a lot of early crypto believers, people that are excited about that. It's also a lot of people that are passionate about social media. And you're for the first time seeing these two worlds of crypto and social converging. And they're not just converging around a crypto project. They actually get to interact on this website and meet new people and network. It's interesting. I got in a little bit of a spat the other day on Twitter with Mark Cuban. And he was talking about how it's mainly just BitClout porn that's currently on the site. People just talking about BitClout. And yeah, I mean, this is what people are excited about right now on this site. But what's interesting is the fundamental thesis behind BitClout is that people are going to be able to, and they're already creating, there's over 2,000 people that have already created their own nodes. You can craft whatever feed you want. They freed the nodes a couple weeks ago. So now, Mark can see, I said, whatever type of porn he wants. But I think that there's this sort of community that's building that is so engaged and just so, as I mentioned, they're just excited about what we could potentially create together, because we're living in a world where there's no rules. And I think typically people think of a world with no rules and they think, oh, there must be chaos there. And sure, I mean, there's some chaos just like there's anywhere else. But I think that the same way a bank is probably more chaotic than Bitcoin, BitClout may wind up being way less chaotic than what we see with traditional social media, because the people that are on the platform have this sort of self-organizing feature to them that allows them to create checks and balances for the community themselves without needing anybody from the very small BitClout team or to step in and say, hey, you got to do this, here's the rules, etc. So BitClout.com right now, it is largely centralized, but the vision for BitClout as a whole is to create an entire decentralized ecosystem that evolves the way we view social media and view our ability to even be a creator. Like, what would it mean to be a full-time creator for you or myself on other platforms, and having to deal with brands paying us to do things? And, as an executive and an entrepreneur, I haven't really found my groove in being a creator on any other platform. But when you start tying these sort of immediate rewards of people being able to invest in you, there's a lot of positive that comes with it. And there's going to be a lot of negative too, but there is a lot of opportunity in terms of what may be possible, because creators should hypothetically be able to monetize significantly more if you take the traditional means of social media and you add on the ability for their fans to actually invest in them. So 5 years from now, following somebody on social media may not be the dominant way in which we choose to stay in touch with them. We may choose to invest in them because we believe in them and we believe that they're going to continue to grow. And we want to express our appreciation and our support, not through likes or through comments, although we may do that too, but also with our hard-earned money.
Yeah, there's so many interesting points in there. I want to comment on like a few things. So one, like, the early content that's emerging on BitClout, it's useful to keep in mind that like early Twitter was people posting like a ham sandwich that they had for lunch. And now it's like the dominant news source around the world for everyone.
Sunsets on Instagram.
Exactly.
Red Bull posting pictures of their cans. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to start somewhere, but I think to be overly critical on the content that sort of emerged as popular on BitClout in the early days is, fine, like fair critique, but it may be sort of shielding your eyes from the larger potential there, and the incentives that the decentralized system creates will probably take some time to play out. And like you said, maybe there's just a larger variance, which I think is how technology largely works, where there may be a lot more better stuff and there might be some downside, some negative stuff as well, but sort of TBD. It seems that decentralizing social media is probably a net good thing, and sort of distributing value across, through the protocol across all of these different creators, as opposed to just in Facebook's bank account and Zuckerberg's bank account is probably like net a good thing. So that's super interesting. And then the other thing you mentioned, sort of hinting at the future for BitClout, is this concept that it's not just BitClout.com where there's one feed. There's going to be, tens, hundreds, maybe thousands of nodes running their own feed. And you can sort of follow, it's not just about following individuals, it's following basically curators of individuals. And you can sort of choose your news source. Whereas now you're on Twitter and you follow whoever you want to follow. And then the algorithm creates your feed basically in a way that will probably get you like pretty addicted. And, it's just, they're incentivized by their business model. Like, I'm not saying Twitter's evil or anything, but, and I certainly have gotten a lot of value out of Twitter. But they're just incentivized by the fact of the business model, same as Facebook, to sort of maximize your engagement. And in order to do so, they figure out how to, maximize your engagement, and that, they don't really care like, oh, we don't want these people to be addicted or whatever. So with BitClout, you can have individuals curating feeds, and they don't have those same incentives where they're just trying to addict you. They might just say, hey, I really like the NBA, and I'm going to find all the best contributors on BitClout who are clouting about NBA type related stuff, and I think they're really good, and I think their information's great, and maybe the content's funny or whatever it is, and maybe there's like a separate node for, and correct me if I'm wrong on this stuff, but like maybe there's a separate node for like funny NBA or like NBA drama versus like pure like basketball stats and whatever, and people can sort of follow their own feeds from there. Is that accurate in terms of like what the future looks like in terms of all these different nodes running, or do I have that totally wrong?
No, you have it right. And it's, I've been so excited about like what's going to be the Instagram of BitClout, what's going to be the Reddit of BitClout. And what you're talking about is so much more simple, yet potentially just as valuable. Because if you think about the way you briefly alluded to the algorithms, these social companies, I sign up, I sign up on Twitter, I follow Pod of Jake or Blog of Jake. I assume it's Blog of Jake on there. And you have this sort of moment where you're choosing to connect with that person. Like if you go to dinner with a bunch of people, your first instinct after dinner isn't just to go follow them immediately on Instagram. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, depending on the person, your behavior, your patterns. But if you choose to do so, you do so because you want to connect with that person. However, Instagram is interested in showing you the content that's going to keep you on their platform the longest, regardless if it's from the people you care about or not, because that's how they make money. And so I think the thing that needs to be emphasized here is the massive shift from going from an advertiser only model to, or largely advertising model, to a model that relies on the public to actually invest in things they care about. And as a result, take the advertiser out of the equation. And to your point, give you the content when you want, how you want it. The ability to sort of with one engineer, just create, your own node and start something up. And then really, to your point, bringing in the evolution of the curator, like this may be the era of the curator who can build the site that's got the best algorithm that the most people like, or the most different algorithms that people like, all hosting on one site. I mean, that's going to be some really interesting, things we're going to see play out here over the next 6 months. And I believe it's something like 75 companies have already been being built on this, which some people in crypto have told me is a record for a new cryptocurrency like this or a new blockchain. I can't verify that, but I can definitely verify that there's dozens of companies because I've talked to many of them, and it's really going to be interesting. And Jake, one of the things I wanted to ask you was, obviously I am very, very passionate about the world of decentralized social media and what could be possible as this comes to fruition, because I do believe creators not only deserve the right to own their audience, but also the right to reach them instantly and directly and monetize it. I'm very passionate about those things, but there are some underlying, I'm trying to think of what the word to say is, like qualms about BitClout or fears about BitClout that I feel like if we didn't address, it wouldn't be fair.
Yeah, sure. So there's a few concerns that I had, none which are can't be overcome. So that's if you sort of list your top few issues and realize that they all have seemingly pretty easy solutions, that's like a pretty easy way to become bullish on the platform. And true. We can you want to go into those now. I also want to well, let's go into those now, and then I'll get to where I want to go. But
it's your show, buddy. I'm on your time frame.
Yeah, no, but it's a good question. I think it's really important, especially coming from a guy like you, super bullish on the platform, had a super successful time thus far, and you're talking with all the movers and shakers. To address the concerns is something really valuable, and I like to just take as reasonable of approach as I can, basically, with the show in general. So I do want to dig in here. I think the major concern that I have, which I think can be quickly addressed, is thus far, and I shouldn't say major concern. It's more of a consideration and a sort of curiosity about how it's going to impact BitClout, both in the immediate future and then eventually in the long term. Which is that currently, as I sort of mentioned earlier, you basically, in order to get BitClout, you have to put in Bitcoin, exchange your Bitcoin for BitClout, and then you need BitClout to buy creator coins. I can go buy your creator coin, which I will. You've already bought mine, which is awesome. And you need BitClout to do all of that. And the tricky thing is, like, thus far, there's no way to reverse that out. You can sell your creator coin back in exchange for BitClout, And people, I'm assuming plenty of people have and have made nice returns on the creator coins if they discover someone early and then invest. And then, later they decide to sell a portion of them and get out BitClout in exchange. But you can't then go, as of yet, as far as I'm aware, and go and sell the BitClout back in exchange for Bitcoin, which then, of course, there's, plenty of exchanges where you can exchange Bitcoin for fiat. I don't know who would do that right now, but people at least want to be able to get dollars in some parts of the world or their local currencies, or exchange Bitcoin for Ethereum or whatever it is. So there's basically no off ramps. So the challenge is, when does that come, and what happens when that becomes available? Is there so much pent up demand of people who have sort of made an early killing on BitClout in terms of BitClout that they then want to go and get Bitcoin in exchange? How do you view this whole transition happening, and if you have any idea, like, when do you envision it happening? And is it going to be BitClout that's building the thing? Are they going to be partnering with exchanges? Basically, this whole subject is sort of the critical thing from my perspective that I want to see, just to continue to build my conviction in the platform and the protocol.
Yeah, that's the first step, right? If creators are going to be monetizing on the platform, they need to be able to remove the BitClout back to US dollars. And, as somebody who comes from the traditional world and hasn't really lived in Web3 as long as many of the people that are probably listening, this was sort of a foreign concept to me. But in studying it more, it seems like many successful crypto projects have started. I know Whale Shark was saying on the site that when you look at something like Tezos, for example, he invested in Tezos and then he had held his money for a while. He couldn't sell for a while. Then eventually he was allowed to sell. He sold some and he kept some. So it seems like it's not a completely foreign concept for the crypto world, but they do need to create that off ramp. And one of the ways they exposed how transparent they are being about that off ramp process is they actually release the entire API of the protocol as it pertains to exchanges, so that anybody can actually go ahead and set up their exchange right now, because they released all the code enabling you to do so. And so I assume we're weeks away. I don't even think it's months away. I think we're weeks away from being able to offload BitClout, which leads to a whole bunch of other questions we can address in a second. But I think that the other thing that people need to recognize is that this concept for many sounds so crazy. I'm going to invest in people. I'm going to have my own coin. I mean, if you told me 8 weeks ago that I was going to have my own coin and that it was going to be trading for $1, meanwhile, $20,000, I would think you're out of your mind. I mean, I had no plans for this at all. And I'm a planner, so these things don't typically just show up and happen. But one of the things that's interesting is, despite the fact that there's always businesses that get a lot of great investors that still fail, I think that BitClout's unique in the fact that it's almost like the 92 dream team of investors. That doesn't mean it's going to work. But, when you look at across the board, you have you have Naval and Chamath at the very top, right? Who are just obviously icons in our world and the best at what they do and just total visionaries in how they think about business and value creation. And then you have the entertainment industry on board, because you have Scooter Braun and Ashton Kutcher and Guy Oseary and Troy Carter all have, invested. And when I say invested, by the way, these people didn't invest in the company. BitClout is not a company for anybody listening. BitClout is a protocol. So these people actually just purchase tokens at rates that are earlier than what you could purchase them today. And then you have Andreessen Horowitz, and I've heard rumors that this is actually Sequoia's first token investment. So we know Sequoia's involved. I don't know if they've made other token investments or not, but that's interesting. And then to just top it off for you, you have Coinbase and Gemini and the other big funds from the crypto space, the blockchains and the DJIs. And so, distributed global. And so it's really fascinating to see this world where all these people have sort of taken this chance, putting their name, their reputations at stake on this concept, because they believe that the world needs to move in this direction, at least in some capacity. Otherwise, why would they make why would they give it their support in any capacity? And so I do think we'll see the exchanges. I do think we'll continue to also see ways that creators can actually monetize. Right now, the way that creators technically monetize is that the creator coin, when it's purchased, like if you buy my creator coin right now, I have it set where 20% of that the fee for the coin actually goes to me directly. Most people have it set at 10%, as it should be for most people. I think when you get a little bit higher up, you want to control a little bit more of your supply, and so it's important that people can't just sell a bunch of you and then your price changes really instantly. But call it 10%. And a lot of people say, well, why as a creator, why should I not be entitled to 90% or 60% or at least 50%? Well, nobody's going to invest in you if you have to double in price just to break even, right? It's an investment. They're not actually paying you the money. They're investing in you. And so the fact that you get 10% of that is actually, I think, pretty fair and interesting. Some may disagree, but right now that 10% goes back into your own coin. So I get 10% of my coin. I don't get it directly in BitClout or in dollars. And as they sort of evolve this ecosystem, I'm assuming there's going to be ways for that to occur. But I also think that there will be ways, for people to pay you directly, either in BitClout or in your own coin for, you reclouding a post, let's say, or doing various things that would actually result in advertisers being able to play in the ecosystem if they wanted to. I just think there's going to be all sorts of ways for creators to monetize. And it's going to be really interesting. If you hold 2 of my tokens, you get X, you get Y. If you've held them for a year, you get X and Y differently. I just think there's, with NFTs, there hasn't been that need as much to figure out beyond the digital art, how are the creator and the owner actually interacting with each other and providing value to each other. It's mainly art. But I think with social tokens, there's this new opportunity to create value in that exchange that goes beyond the speculation of the monetary value of the token itself.
Yeah, it's interesting when things start to go beyond speculation and turn into like there's actual things that you can exchange the coins for.
Yes.
And I think of it both in terms of like what you said, whether it's like a sponsored post or access to premium content or, some famous, like, I don't know, Elon Musk is always the famous guy, tech guy that comes to mind for an example, but he says, hey, my 10 biggest holders by January 1st, 2022, let's ring in the New Year's together and you're invited to SpaceX headquarters to celebrate with me or whatever like that. Like you can imagine the people who would sort of be vying and how much they would be willing to buy of that price for that sort of reward. And maybe that's like too big of an example even to really make sense. But things like this where you can get pretty creative in terms of incentivizing your audience to invest in you in exchange for, or rather exchange, the coins of them that you have bought in exchange for like maybe their time or their attention or they're responding to a message or they're reclouding your clout, like you said. So there's all sorts of applications, and it's going to take some time probably to see how the most successful people on the platform are taking advantage of these different features. But I guess another concern or consideration at least that people talk about a little bit, I wrote briefly about it. And again, I think it's super solvable, but worth addressing just for the sake of giving everyone like the full picture, is this concept. It's sort of twofold actually, where on the one hand, you have people like Elon Musk and other celebrities who have had their account basically reserved on BitClout. So it's like at Elon Musk and it's reserved and it has like this clock next to it to show that it's reserved and hasn't been claimed by Elon yet. And he can basically go and tweet to, tweet the code to claim it on BitClout to basically verify that it's him. But the whole concept of reserving these top profiles, I understand has been like slightly controversial. And then on the other side of that, you have accounts that were not reserved. So I think it was like the top 15,000 influencers or something like that was reserved. But then you have ones outside of that are also like reasonably big names, and people are sort of rushing to claim those big names. And then so I'm getting followed by, one example was like Travis Kalanick. And like, I'm pretty sure it's not Travis Kalanick, but that person now has the claim on that profile name. So I guess, how do you see this issue being basically reconciled over time? Or maybe is it something that doesn't need to be fixed?
Yeah, totally. Let's address the first one first. So BitClout uploaded the top 15,000 names from Twitter without those creators' permission. And they started coins, in their, whether it was Barack Obama or Donald Trump or Kanye West or Kim Kardashian, they gave these people coins and people could trade on those. And I've talked to so many different lawyers about this. There's everything from lawyers saying that this is public name and likeness, the same as somebody can take a picture of you leaving a restaurant and post it on Getty Images and sell it, to other lawyers saying that this is absolutely illegal and it's going to be shut down and, et cetera. But I'd like to defer to somebody much smarter than myself on this topic. I was listening to Naval talk the other night in Clubhouse, and he was saying, if you look at the way that tech companies start, this is very normal to onboard a bunch of businesses sort of without their permission. You look at Yelp or Glassdoor, for example, they did very similar things. And so it's sort of accepted in the world of Silicon Valley to do something like this. Now, for the creators themselves, one of the things that's interesting that BitClout set up so geniusly is if you tweet out your public wallet key, you not only get to claim your profile, but you get 30% of your market cap instantly. So, you know, for some people, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars in there. For some people, tens of thousands. For some people, it's actually millions of dollars in BitClout waiting, in BitClout value, waiting to be claimed. And it's just such an interesting growth hack. And then there's always the creators that say, you know, I don't want this. And I thought we might see class action lawsuits and this and that. And now it's so far in, we haven't seen, I don't mean it's so far in, but it's been a month and a half. And the only people that seem to be really standing up against it are people from the crypto community, which is kind of interesting. I guess they think that this was done in a way that doesn't represent the true nature of crypto, and everyone has their different definition of what cryptocurrency and blockchain should be or could be. So that's their prerogative. But it has been interesting to talk to some people from the music industry where they'll say to me, "Hey, I want to file cease and desist," and it's like, okay, well, if you want to do that, you could just probably let the team know, hey, like, we want our profile taken. I don't think you need to go through the whole legal process of filing a cease and desist. But do you really want to do that? Because what happens if over the next 5 years, the vision for BitClout becomes true? And hypothetically, what if we live in a world where your, back with the Facebook analogy from earlier, where your creator coin value follows you around the blockchain, or at least the social blockchain, the same way that your Facebook login follows you around the internet? Do you really want to be the person that said, no, I don't want my creator coin to be on this website at all? So that's interesting. The second point you bring up about the faking of names and squatting on names and trying to be somebody that you're not, that's a huge problem that needs to be figured out. I assume at some point there'll be some sort of way to flag a profile. In the first couple of days that the site was live, I saw somebody join. I thought it was really them. I invested a bunch of money and I lost a bunch of money very quickly. And the good news is you only make that mistake once, but you don't want that mistake to happen to, a 16-year-old girl or guy for that matter, who was using their allowance to purchase their favorite recording artist coin and happens to buy the wrong one. And so right now there is a verification system. It's not perfect, and there's going to need to be stronger ways that the community itself probably flags profiles that they think are either mischievous or faking identity. And yes, it's a problem, but this thing's only been up for, I think, 8 or 10 weeks. So there's maybe less. So there's plenty of time for that to, I think, be figured out.
You said before you didn't really find your, I forget what you said exactly, but like you didn't really find your stride on any particular platform prior to this. You certainly have now. You're a top 10 profile on this hugely up and coming thing, like you mentioned, backed by just incredible list of investors, which is part of what got me interested in the first place. Is like, I think if you look at an amazing list of investors like that and you don't, you think better that it's going to fail for this reason or that reason, it's like, how smart do you think you are? So for me, it's like I see those guys and I'm like, all right, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that like Naval, Chamath, A16Z, Sequoia, all these people, who, by the way, probably have more insight and information than I do just by having access to like the founder and the, the core group and whatever it is. I give them some benefit of the doubt and say, hey, I'll throw in some money here. So I actually started my BitClout profile, I want to say like maybe 3 weeks ago or so. Maybe
you went
5
big,
weeks.
Right? $94?
Yeah. So it was $94 that I put in, and it's worth like $6,000 now. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's worth $6,000 already?
Yeah. So, and that's the crazy part, right? It's like, I've been doing, blogs and podcasts for several months, blogging before that, like 6 months prior. And I can appreciate, like, it's very hard to monetize as a creator, but then you go on BitClout and you find, like, I already have these people who hit me up on Twitter and they say like, hey man, like your podcast is great or whatever, like you're writing. I think you're going to be super successful. Just keep at it. And now with BitClout, they actually have an opportunity to like put their money where their mouth is and invest. And maybe it's just, $10 or whatever it is, but it's not just like a Patreon thing anymore where they're just donating out of the kindness of their heart or whatever. They actually are getting sort of a stake in my reputation, maybe for lack of a better word, where if and as I sort of realize that potential that they see in me, they'll actually make money for it. And all along the way, to your point about like the founder share or the creator share, I forget what it's called, but when they invest $10, I get $1 worth or whatever it is. So I'm actually benefiting all the way as well, which is how I think, that $94 that I put in, there's certainly been appreciation of like the creator coin price, but also I'm getting 10% of, everyone who invests, the amount that they invest, I get 10% rewarded to myself. So it's a really incredible system. And, no one, like you said earlier, you have this background with music and everything. So you can certainly appreciate, and I, over the last year, have been able to appreciate how it's difficult to monetize as a creator. Even if you're like a really successful musician, it's tough. And now BitClout represents sort of a path forward there.
It so does. And I couldn't have said any of that better. I was just smiling the whole time because I was about to bring up Patreon. You're just one step ahead as usual. But it's amazing how on some of these other platforms like Instagram, you don't get paid to create at all. YouTube, you get paid to create, but it's fully their rules, right? And with BitClout, you get to set the percentage of what you want to make, which is kind of interesting. Obviously, platforms will come along that will attempt to set their own rules, and you can choose to join those platforms or not. But it is really interesting to think about the ecosystem, because I think that despite the website currently just being this very simple, laggy proof of concept, it has captured imaginations, not just because of the site itself, but because of this tremendously large vision that Diamond Hands and Maybeam and the rest of the team has put together, that has enabled you to imagine a world that exists without one person in charge, which I know many people that are big in crypto have been advocating that message for years as it applies to money, and would love to see it come to fruition, not just with Bitcoin and Ethereum and all the other amazing cryptocurrencies, but hopefully with social media as well.
Right. So I know we're running over on time. I got one more question. Do you have time for it?
Yeah, I'm good on time. So I'm on your
Great.
time.
So basically, I for all the people who have listened to this conversation and now, maybe they knew about BitClout, but they didn't know so much, or they didn't know how they felt, and now they're super bullish and they want to get on the platform and start getting involved as quickly as possible. They need someone to look up to and to sort of model their approach to the platform after. And I don't know a better person than you. Like I said, you're a top 10 profile, and you're surrounded by people like both claimed profiles and unclaimed profiles, which is basically these unclaimed profiles is like, so I think Ariana Grande, not sure how to pronounce that, but probably should, but she's like a top 10 person, even though she hasn't claimed her account yet. People are still investing, I guess, speculating not only on her value, but on the likelihood that she will join the platform at some point. So there's basically like a bunch of famous people in the top 10, and that's like Elon Musk and others like that. Then there's like Chamath and Diamond Hands himself, the creator, is somewhere near the top. But you're right in the mix. And I don't know how many weeks ago you sort of got involved, but it's very new for everyone. So how did you rise to the top on BitClout, and what strategies do you think are more generally applicable to people who get started now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I remember like maybe now 3 months ago seeing one of your former podcast guests, Blau, who I actually used to manage for a brief stint. He had that amazing NFT auction that was running. And I remember seeing Whale Shark at the top, bidding against another bidder, $3.5 million to get a Blau NFT. And I'm like, who the fuck is this Whale Shark guy? And now here I am 12 weeks later on BitClout, and I'm in a boy band with him called the BitClout Boys, because somebody put our faces on the Backstreet Boys, and here we are. So a lot can change in 12 weeks. I mean, I didn't expect any of this to happen. I came on here to invest in creators and support the future of the creator economy and the vision for decentralized social media. When I read the white paper, I didn't even fully know what it meant to have my own coin. And the site at the beginning, there were so many, you're trying to post things, it wasn't working. It was so crazy that once again, I didn't think that this was what it was going to be, but it has become something. And when you ask how I did it, I just tried to post things that I thought people would care about, that were interesting to me, things that represented the trends of this movement, the trends of current social media, the trends of crypto as it pertains to social media and just crypto in general. And most importantly, I just tried to provide value to the community. So, within like 1 week of being on the platform, I started I don't know if you call it a podcast. It's like a club. Eventually it'll be a podcast. It's like a clubhouse room right now, called Clout Hour, where every once a week we bring on a guest. We've had Blau on, we've had Pamela Anderson on. We had Elio Trades last week. Tonight we're having Logan Paul. Creators on BitClout, where we talk about BitClout and the future of social media, and also obviously touch on the generalities of their lives. But I think that the main goal that I've had has been to provide value to the ecosystem and connect with as many people as I can that are doing interesting things. I don't necessarily care what their background is or how much money they have on the platform. Although I will say that it does, it's one of probably the qualms of it right now, is that money does represent, if you invest $20,000, $30,000 or sometimes $50,000, $100,000 into somebody, you get on their radar very, very, very quickly. And so I didn't put that much money into this platform compared to crypto whales, but I made some good investments. They paid off quickly. And now I've really tried to support the community and try to figure out what are going to be the projects that are built on top of this thing. And so for anybody that's joining, you can just join, but if you join and you truly try to make an effort, I think it'll be some of the best networking of your entire life, because this is the beginning of a movement that is, begins with BitClout, and maybe it ends with BitClout, maybe it ends somewhere else. We don't know. But the decentralization of social media, as Diamond Hands put forth in his vision, is surely here. And whether it becomes mainstream or not will be up to the people that are in this community building it. And I just pride myself on being somebody that believes that this vision is possible and wants to see it happen.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think hopefully helpful to people who are interested in getting on board. I know for me, you don't have to dive into the deep end. You just create a profile, put a little bit of Bitcoin in. For me, it was like $94, and sort of start, clouding a little bit, which is, we've been using the verb a lot, but it's the BitClout version of tweeting, and get some content on there, see if it resonates with people, tell some of your followers from Twitter or wherever to get on and follow you on BitClout, and just see how things happen. And you might get lucky like me, or you might you might know what you're doing like Jake and build one of the top profiles on the platform. So Jake's, just for people listening in, definitely go follow him and hopefully invest at it's at Jake Udell, JakeUdell on bitclout.com. And you'll see there that he's got over $1 million USD locked into his profile, and the valuation or the market cap rather of his profile is like approaching 4 million, which is must be somewhat of a head trip after just a matter of weeks. But I think you're doing all the right things. You've got this clubhouse like you talked about, talking with Logan Paul tonight. So it's awesome to watch you, and it's awesome to watch the platform develop. And I think we've only scratched the surface on a lot of these exciting elements in the last hour or so, but super excited to see how things play out. Is there anywhere else where people can go and follow you? Obviously BitClout's most important, but anywhere you want people to, like, if people are interested to learn more about you, to look or anything like that?
Yeah, of course. Anybody that wants to connect and is inspired by this conversation, feel free to text me. I have a community number because that's my baby. So 312-500-7854. Once again, 312-500-7854. And Jake, I'll leave you with this. If BitClout came out in the middle of March, I think it was March 16th, and if in a month and a half I can develop a market value in myself, this is not my market value is 3.8 million, but the coins that I've been given through my founder award are well over $500,000. If I can do that in a month and a half, what is that going to look like for the future of creators across the world? It's pretty inspiring.